Thank you, Dr. Lin, for your introduction. And I am honored and proud to be a member of the class of 2011 of Montgomery College. You know, Dr. Pollard and I share a common background. We were both educated in the field of dreams called Iowa. And so we were transported from the middle of a cornfield to here, one of the most dynamic places in the country. And she is one of the most inspired, most energetic, and most high-profile leaders in higher education. You are very fortunate to have her as president. To the members of the Board of Trustees, the faculty and staff, honored guests, and of course, the graduates of the class of 2011, my fellow classmates, and to your families, parents, children, relatives, other relatives, and loved ones. It is a great privilege for me to be here and give the commencement address. Last night, I talked to a friend of mine, an Irish priest, and I said, I'm going to deliver the commencement address at Montgomery College. And he said, well, just remember, a commencement speaker is like the body at an old-fashioned Irish wake. They need you to have a party, but nobody expects you to say very much. President Pollard is a first-year president. I, too, am a first-year president. So I'm sure you're probably curious to know what's it like to be a brand new president. Well, let me share with you what I've learned in my 7 months in office. At first, I thought that being the president of a school with 37,000 students, 9,000 faculty and staff, a budget of $1.7 billion, you know, that'd be like being the CEO of a major corporation. Well, let me tell you, that's far from the truth. What I've discovered is that it's more like being the director of a cemetery. There are lots of people under me, but nobody listens. But today I have a captive audience. And we're here to celebrate the successful completion of the studies of the class of 2011. So let me briefly mention what these degrees mean, including this new honorary degree that I got. Now, the students probably know about this, so this is perhaps primarily for the parents and friends who are here. When you're in high school and you think you know everything that there is to know, there's nothing more you need to learn, that is when they give you a high school diploma. And then you come to a community college or four-year institution, you go to post-secondary education, and it dawns upon you. It dawns upon you that there is so much you do not know, and there's so much more that you need to learn. When that realization dawns, that is when you earn a college diploma. However, if you continue to stay on in school, and it dawns upon you not only that you know very little, but that your faculty members know very little too, that is when a university awards you the Ph.D. After all, what is education but the progressive discovery of our own ignorance? As the poet Yeats said, education is not the filling of a pail, it is the lighting of a flame. It's the lighting of a passion for learning that will last you a lifetime. Because what is important is not what the teacher pours into the student, but what the teacher inspires the student to do for the rest of his or her life. I want you to remember one figure, 1 in 1,000. Only 1 in 1,000 persons on this planet has the opportunity of having a college degree. And therefore, some measure of your education, of the knowledge and skills you have acquired, you may want to consider to give back to the community that supported you. It may be old-fashioned, but I believe that at the end of the day, it is not only what you know, but who you become as a result of your knowledge. It is not only the skills that you have acquired that counts. What counts are the values and the content of your character. That is the ultimate purpose of education. And to the faculty, I would say this, and I am an educator. Education is a calling. It's not a job. I was on the plane the other day, and a business person sitting next to me said to me, well, so what line of work are you in? And just spontaneously I said, I'm in the immortality business. I'm in the business of taking the knowledge and the wisdom of the ages, preserving it, expanding it, and transmitting it to the next generation to transform their lives. And by transforming their lives, they will transform the lives of their children. We as teachers affect eternity. We are in the business of immortality. And I know you have great teachers here. Let me just share with you who I think are the 3 greatest teachers in history, in my view. Socrates, Jesus, and Hillel. Socrates, as you know, was this Greek philosopher who wandered around making a nuisance of himself, asking all sorts of questions, and never giving any answers. And Jesus, he never really gave sermons. He told parables, he told stories, and he expected the listeners to draw their own conclusions from those stories. And Rabbi Hillel will engage his students in deep conversations about the Torah, and at the end of those conversations, he would say, now go do as the Torah commands, but he would never say what the Torah commanded. He expected the students to draw their own conclusions. So what do these 3 teachers have in common? Great teachers do not teach. Great teachers help students learn. Great teachers inspire students to teach themselves. I was standing outside watching you come in, and I was amazed. I looked at you, and I said to myself, I see the future of America. I see the future of our country. And I saw that future a few years ago when I was watching television, the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games in Beijing. They announced the Chinese team. They marched in. They all look like Chinese. Then they announced the team from Nigeria, and they all look like Africans. And then they announced the team from Russia, and they all look like Slavs. And then they announced the team from the United States, and they looked like the world. Fifteen percent of our American athletes were born abroad. And the point I want to make today is that demographic change is remaking the future of this country. When I first came to this country, I was 15 years old. I was born in China, and at the age of 1, my family relocated to South America. And because there were few opportunities there, they said to me, you have to go to America. So I came at the age of 15, not knowing any English, never been here, with $300 in my pocket, the life savings of my parents. But I came inspired as generations of immigrants before me and after me are inspired by the American dream. That this is the land of opportunity, that by hard work, scrappy determination, you can realize your dreams. So I ended up in a tiny little town in Iowa with 400 students. Never heard of it, had no idea where Iowa was. And the first 2 years were hard. I barely survived the first 2 years. 1.9 GPA. When I listened to the students here with a 4 but I persevered. And I was mentored, I was supported. Faculty members helped me. They got me jobs washing pots and pans in the college cafeteria, which enabled me to have 1 meal a day. They found me jobs shoveling snow in the winter, washing cars in the summer. But those 4 years, 5 years actually, transformed my life and set me on the journey to where I am today. I tell you this story not because this story, it's not because this personal story is of any larger consequence other than this. It is the story of the promise of this country and the importance of education. It is the story for every young person today who says, if he can do it, so can I. It is the story of this country's broadening of the boundaries of inclusiveness. It is the story of this country's formation of a more perfect union that allows an Asian Hispanic American to stand before you today as the president of the University of Maryland. It is the story of the American dream. And I know nobody achieves his or her dreams solely by dint of his or her own efforts and hard work. I got to where I got because trailblazers from an earlier generation paved the way for me, and I'm grateful for what they have done. So when I first came to Iowa in the early 60s, 1 out of 10 persons in this country was a person of color. By the year 2040, or today, it is 1 out of 4, 25%. By 2040, it'll be 1 in 2. By 2040, there will be no minorities in this country because we will all be minorities. Just look at Montgomery College. So as I saw you walking in, I said, I see the face of America. Approximately 1/3 are whites, 1/3 of African Americans, 1/3 are Latinos and Asians and multiracial students. I know that 1/3 are from international are international students from 174 different countries. And that demographic profile is changing the country, because once upon a time, America was a microcosm of Europe, and we are now becoming a microcosm of the world. America is becoming the first nation in history to be a nation of nations, a universal nation. There have been multicultural, multi-ethnic nations in the past, the Roman Empire, the former Soviet Union. But remember, those were nations that were forged by conquest and maintained by military occupation. The United States is the only country that's multicultural, with the exception of Africans who came to this country not of their own free will. But except for that, it is a country forged by voluntary immigration. And the notion of a universal nation tolls the bell for manifest destiny. Other countries, China, Japan, Western Europe, have stagnant populations. People today worry whether America is declining. And I say, you need not worry, because we are an immigrant nation. We bring in people from all over the world, their energies, their talents, their passions, and they revitalize this country. This is what allows us to compete in the 21st century. And you know, it is happening faster than we can imagine if you just look at the faces of the kids in the playgrounds and the classrooms of public schools. According to the 2010 census, you will see that before the end of this decade, about half of all the students in public schools, in K-12 education, will be minorities. And among Hispanic students, the fastest growing group in this nation, nearly 50% do not graduate from high school. Education is the great equalizer of conditions in a democracy. That's what Thomas Jefferson taught us. It is the principal passport to social and economic opportunity, and the golden doors of opportunity cannot remain closed for the next generation. I want you to know that President Pollard and I will work together, and we will do everything possible to facilitate the transfer of students to the University of Maryland. Now, I know there are many, many fine colleges for your institutions, many talented students. We have a very significant number of transfer students at College Park, and of course also at Shady Grove. But I'm very proud of the fact that 50% of all transfer students at the University of Maryland, College Park, are from Montgomery College. And I am one of you today. But let me just very briefly touch upon a challenge. In the second half of the 20th century, when I grew up in this country, the big challenge of our nation was how to become more diverse. But the challenge for you in the first half of the 21st century is not how to become more diverse. We are already diverse. It is how to unify this country. In an increasingly multicultural, multi-ethnic global world, we need a vision of America where every person's background and personal story matters, where people can be proud of their heritage and their background, but they feel part of a larger community. We need a vision of America where difference is respected and valued, but where there is also a common culture that brings us together. In 2004, I heard, I'm sure many of you heard too, a new young United States Senator at the 2004 Democratic National Convention who said, there is not a Black America and a white America and a Latino America and a nation America. There is only the United States of America. That United States Senator is our President, Barack Obama. And President Obama was simply echoing the sentiments of the Reverend Martin Luther King on that sultry August day in 1963. And I remember there standing in the shadows of the Washington Monument, where Dr. King, in thunderclap eloquence, told about his dream. I have a dream, he said, that someday my children will be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. He was articulating a vision. He was articulating a vision of America that transcends race and transcends ethnicity. Now, we are realists. We know that we have not reached the promised land where the lion will lay down with the lamb, a day when race and ethnicity will no longer be obstacles. But that is the vision, a vision where we embrace our cultural and ethnic heritage, but race becomes irrelevant for purposes of education and employment and rights. So whatever your politics, no matter who you voted for, it's inspiring to think what we might accomplish as a nation if we realize the vision someday, maybe not in my lifetime, but someday, a vision of a post-racial America. When we think of ourselves not as hyphenated Americans, African Americans, Asian Americans, Latino Americans, but simply as Americans. And therefore realize the vision of the founding fathers, which is imprinted on our coins in Latin, e pluribus unum, one formed from many. We are a diverse people, but we're bound together by common values and common ideals. Other nations, and we know that we have many people from other nations here, other nations are bonded by a common religion, by land, by race, by language. But being an American is a state of mind. It's a matter of the heart. It's a matter of values. We are of many backgrounds and cultures and viewpoints and beliefs, but ultimately we are one. What holds us together is a commitment to certain core values that define our national character. These values transcend race, they transcend gender, they transcend sexual orientation, they transcend social class, and they transcend the politics of blue or red. These values are enshrined in the Constitution, not because they are legal rights, but they are fundamental human rights, the shared heritage of humankind, of human dignity, equal treatment, fair process. Those are the moral glue that holds our society together. My generation, I hope, contributed to the diversification of America. It is your job in the 21st century to contribute to bringing America together. Let me just conclude as you go forward with a final observation. It is this. It is, you are the future. In you, we see what America will become. And my parting words is a paraphrase of the wisdom of Mark Twain. Always learn as if your grades do not count. Always work as if you do not need the money. Always dance as if nobody's watching. Always fall in love as if you have never been hurt. And always live as if this is heaven on earth. God bless you and Godspeed.